This is Wander to the Edge. My name is Adam Asher from the Edge of Adventure.
And I'm Zan from Where Gals Wander.
Zan, it's good to see you. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. I am honored to be in the presence of celebrity basically now,
All
correct?
right. Right. Well, listen, I had a great time, and I literally the thing I want to focus on is just to thank everybody who, everybody that's been so supportive. I was, of course, in the Best Self Atlanta competition, made it into the top 10, and did not win. It did not on the cover, but I did have the opportunity to, be there. They had a big event earlier this week. Got to be there. Got to speak a little bit briefly to the people in attendance, and just to get to be with those people. I mean, they're great people, and been very kind to me. So yeah, Best Self Atlanta, that's over. Best Self Atlanta 2021. I did it. You guys got me into the top 10, and it's just
Got you
super.
to the top two.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't officially like a second place, but I will say what they did tell me was that I did receive the second most number of votes. Now that was not the deciding factor. They had a variety of different things that they, I guess, made their decision based upon. But I got a lot of votes. They didn't tell me quite how many, but they made it clear that this year they had more votes than they'd ever had prior. And then, of course, the number one, the person who ended up being selected for the cover, who's a great lady. She got the most votes, and then apparently I was not far behind, thanks to all these wonderful people like you guys. Anyway, don't want to talk all night about me, but I did want
It's
to.
you and your favorite person.
It is, and I was like, oh look, who's this? Who's this in the picture? I love this guy. And look at this. Look at how snazzy I look there. I mean,
You do.
I felt like a big deal. And look at there, you can't even read it. Teeny tiny. That's me in the distance.
Mhm.
But you can look them up at Best Self Atlanta if you want to read it. You can look it up at bestselfatlanta.com. And this picture here, you can see it was a sacrifice for me to be in this competition with all these beautiful ladies, beautiful people. So
Mhm.
anyway, I don't know what else to say. You guys are awesome. Thanks for voting and being a part of this. It was not something I expected to be doing this fall, but it's an awesome privilege to have been a part of it. And Zan, you were a big part of it too. You mobilized the Wander to the Edge people to vote as well.
Yeah, well, you know. Well, guess what, Adam?
You need to
You
tell
are
me.
not you are not done talking to beautiful ladies. We have a beautiful person with us today, inside and out. Her name is Linda from Thyme and Travel, and she's going to talk to us about traveling to 24 countries over 5 continents. She's lived in 4 of them, about just how she's raising her kids to be immersed in travel and culture. And then she's a Renaissance woman. Wait till you hear all of the talents and hobbies and that she has and how travel influences those. So we're going to talk today with Linda from Thyme and Travel right here on Wander to the Edge. Hello, my friend.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's so good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Linda, welcome to the program. I understand that you and Zan are partners in crime already.
We are, up on the scale there. We're
Yeah.
climbing high. Yeah.
And because home for you is Southern California?
It is Southern California. Well, home for now. We'll see where it takes me, but yes. I was born and raised in California, and the world's taking me to other places, and we can talk about that shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Linda and I had a meetup a few weeks ago. We went to see the Michelangelo exhibit here in Los Angeles, and it was an experience. there's a couple of photos of me trying to censor some of the artwork in captured in Michelangelo's works. And then we went for lunch and some champagne and that afterwards. So it was fun.
Yes, at the Grove.
Yeah.
It's very fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm
Can't
going to
wait
pull
for
up some.
more. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to just to give some context here. We're going to pull up your Instagram feed, and we'll just be looking at some pictures. You don't have to explain all of them, or maybe not many of them, but we'll be getting to know this wonderful account, Thyme and Travel, but time being spelled Thyme. Tell me
Correct.
where this came from. Why did you choose this as your Instagram handle?
Well, it's evolved in different names, but this is one actually I really love because my account is more about food and travel. And thyme just happened to pop up because it rhymed with travel, but I love thyme as an herb and I use it in a lot of my foods when I cook. So there you have it, Thyme and Travel. Yeah, I think it's pretty catchy.
How did this exhibit go?
Oh my. Um, it was very interesting. It was more than I expected and a little less than what I expected. The intro was, as you saw, was just amazing. And I don't want to give it more because someone is joining me on Sunday. I'm gonna go again, and I don't want to ruin it for her. But it's an amazing experience. I think everyone should go. Um, you can. It's about an hour, but you can spend because it loops, and so you can spend a lot more time in there. And yeah, it's fairly. That's why I'm going back because I was trying to take pictures and trying to engage my viewers, so to speak. But I'm going this time to just indulge and enjoy it for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the cooking.
Yeah.
And you are South American, which I want to talk a little bit more about, but your history in terms of cooking and your passion for cooking and how that's sort of interwoven into your love of travel. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So my mother's side is from Ecuador and my father's side is from Peru. And both of my grandmothers cooked, and that's where I actually learned to enjoy food. Actually, no, I was such a finicky eater when I was younger. But when my grandmother was making desserts, I was always in the kitchen with her, helping her bake and whatnot. So that's where my love for baking came in. And then I've always enjoyed cooking and just being in the kitchen. And um, it was just more of a family thing. And that's how I grew up. Um, so that's always been part of me. Part of our culture is feeding others, and that's how our family parties and reunions were. And so then I always wanted to go to culinary school, and I didn't go right out of high school. I had so many passions and so many hobbies that I did like out of high school. It was fashion, cooking, photography, and I thought back then cooking wasn't really something that I thought I could really enjoy and make money. And my heart was more into fashion, so I went to the fashion industry. But cooking was always still in my bones and eating at me. And I lived in Morocco, and I went to Paris often. And actually, that's where I met the father of my kids was in Paris. And I thought I wanted to go to, not I thought, I actually wanted to go to the Cordon Bleu there. But having a child, and it was really difficult. But once my daughter went off to college, I had a lot of free time, and I went to culinary school. So I have a degree in fashion. That's what I started with, and a degree in culinary. And not yet, but I want to have a degree maybe in photography or something. I'm always, I'm always learning, and I've learning something new, learning a new craft, just to better myself. So that's what I do all the time. And I've got so many projects going on right now. It's just the creativity part of me has always been. And then that's one thing I learned going into culinary school was it can be very creative. And I think I didn't know that back in high school, that I could be creative with culinary. But now that I know that, that's why time and travel.
Well, Linda, I know you are busy. You do a lot of things, and of course, you have this heart for travel and uh, this creative side of you. Do you find it difficult to find time for cooking?
Huh. For cooking, no, I don't. I don't. Cooking for me is very relaxing. So I actually enjoy cooking. And it's a lot of people find it strange that cooking could be relaxing, but I can just be in the zone and start cooking. What I love to do also is to uh, recipe test or develop my own recipes. My daughters became vegan about 5, 6 years ago. And back then it was very difficult for them to go to a restaurant because they were my foodie buddies. And they would go to a restaurant and they couldn't order anything. And it was very difficult. But, I realized vegan food doesn't have to be tasteless. You can make steamed vegetables taste delicious if you just take a little more time and put effort into it. So I started developing recipes for them and converting foods that they grew up with, comfort foods, foods that you have during Christmas and Thanksgiving. And I didn't want them to feel left out. So I started developing those and creating those into vegan friendly versions.
Your
All
love of travel actually started at a pretty young age. I think you were like a teenager, right? When you first started traveling?
I was. Well, being from South America and both of my parents' family lived there, we would go, or I would go as a child with my mother and travel to see the family. But once I turned 15, um, I would go all summer and I would never want to come home. It was just such a different experience. It just felt so much like home, which is, it's kind of strange because this is my home. California is my home, but being there with so many family members and meeting families and cousins and aunts and uncles that never met you before, and everyone's prima, primo, um, and just that warmth and comfort. And so I would spend all my summers all through high school. And my parents say, "Would you like a car this summer?" I started driving when I was 16. I was like, "No, I want to go travel." And that's what I did. I decided to travel instead. And it was just such an eye-opening experience and humbling. It's a third world country, so you go to these countries and there's so much poverty there. And I started handing out everything I brought in my suitcase. By the time I came back, my suitcase was empty, or I brought goodies back for my parents. But yeah, I would just leave everything behind and offer up.
Linda, I find these things fascinating, the differences in culture.
Mm.
And there's so much about US culture, American culture, that is very good and positive, and obviously it has its appeal. But this appeal that you're talking about, it's not just an appeal for you, it's a part of your family, it's a part of who you are.
Right.
Tell us more about that. What, for someone who hasn't had the chance to be there, I mean, you've alluded to a couple of these points, the family ties and the that love and acceptance. But if you were to give us just a taste of what that means when you get this opportunity, let's say to go to Peru or to Ecuador, what is it like, and why do you love it so much?
Hmm. I think uh, I'm the firstborn in the US. So both of my parents migrated here and they were holding on to their culture, rightfully so. And I learned Spanish at a young age. That was my first language. And not having to struggle, I guess, at school with the language or with the different cultures and just going back to homeland, um, I just felt a part of a community that I really didn't feel like I was a part of here. And I don't know if that's um, because of my first generation or just my love of other cultures. Because any other country that I go to and I visit, it's not that I feel home. I don't feel like I'm at home in Japan, um, but I don't feel like so much of an outsider. I guess that's what I want to say. I do feel like I'm welcomed and I'm embraced. Does that make sense? Yeah.
It does. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you even, when you think of your own identity, you think of yourself as being South American first and foremost before any other um, geographic location that you tie yourself to. Is that right?
That's correct. And you know what's interesting is that the U.S. they say we're Americans, but in South America they're Americans too. They're South Americans, they're Central Americans, or they're North Americans. But we're all Americans, being in this continent, but or two, three continents. But um, yeah, I never say I'm American from the U.S. I always say I'm South American, which is open ended, right? It's like South American from where? But that's just how I introduce myself when somebody asks. Yeah.
So, and I'm going to say that I have a question, but I'll also say, I know from your perspective, you're talking about how it's family, right? It's family, and you felt like you belonged there, and so on and so forth. When I go, right, and I can be in a location, I'm the different one, right? In that case, I can be in Central and South America, and of course, I speak Spanish, and that helps to pull you in. But in my experience, if you travel in Central and South America, if you are open to it, if you, as the American U.S. traveler, if you're open to it, they pull you in too, right?
Right.
There's something about the culture. It's not just that you know they don't just look out after their own. I mean, they
Right.
are. It's a warm and embracing culture, and if you're open to it, they have their arms open to you, and that's been my experience. And I think that uh, as the one that could be considered the outsider in those circumstances, I never really feel like it. I always feel very much at home, and I think there's something about that culture that is more warm and familial than a lot of what we have. But it's different, and it's not always the same everywhere you go. But it's pretty much a pretty solid theme. So my question would be,
Hmm.
how has that affected how you look at the world? Because you've lived on different continents, you've traveled around the world. You aren't, these are different cultures, different places. How does your cultural perspective affect how you travel and how you see the world?
Excellent question. By the way, thank you for having me. This is really fun. I like this.
We're
Um,
so excited to have you. We love these kinds of conversations.
We
yeah.
told you this was going to be a good episode. We told
Yeah.
you.
You know, being able to travel at a young age and traveling alone, um, traveling back home, shall I say, opened my heart, my mind, um, my world, really. And I'm able to accept other cultures. Um, I think it's easier for me to accept other cultures. I try to speak, I don't speak Japanese, but let's say I'm in Japan. I try to use words, simple words to make them feel comfortable. And then that actually opens a lot of doors. And I've done that because I'm in their home. And that's how I look at it. I'm in their home. They're welcoming me. So I don't want to go there being arrogant and expecting the menu to be in English everywhere I go, because the Japanese don't come here. I keep saying Japan. I don't know why, because I don't know. Um, the Germans, they don't come here and say, "Well, where's the German menu?" And but I think that's what this society um, in the U.S. I'm going to say, just generalized a little bit, um, goes and travels for the first time, maybe with that expectation. And they'll say, oh, the French are so rude. I was asking for a menu in English and they didn't have it, or he was rude or she was rude. But how are you approaching them? How are you approaching when you go into a restaurant, or how are you approaching the salesperson when you go shopping at Louis Vuitton? Are you going in with an attitude that you're this entitled American? And I think that's why I avoid saying that I'm an American, because I don't want to be, I don't want to seem like I'm entitled. I want to be, down at their level. I want to be humble. I want to be, I want to engage in their culture. I want to be accepting in their culture and their food and their language. And that's why I'm there, to learn from them.
Yeah. How many languages do you speak, Linda?
I speak Spanish, English, French. I was learning Lebanese, and I'm going to say Lebanese because I was married to a Lebanese. But then I lived in Morocco, and the dialect's different. It's Arab. It's an Arab language, as is the Lebanese language. But the dialects are completely different. So I was learning Lebanese and I was learning Moroccan. And I understand, because of Spanish, some Italian. I don't speak Portuguese. I hear that you speak Portuguese, though. I'm jealous. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Well, be careful, because once you start learning Portuguese, it'll mess up your Spanish. That's basically what.
All right, then
I mean,
I'll hold back.
But I think that because they're so similar, you can get a lot of mileage out of the Spanish, because you have this huge head start, but then your brain has to learn to separate languages that are, at least in my case, I'm having to sort of redefine that. So when I'm speaking Spanish, I have to make sure that the Portuguese doesn't slip in, right? Yeah. And I think that is more to do with the fact that they are so similar. When a language is when it is different, it's a little easier to keep it separate. But I find that fascinating. And you're talking about that. Like when I travel, it's virtually impossible to hide the fact that I'm an American. I mean, it's possible I could be from some other place, of course, but the assumption can often be that I'm an American, right? And I do know the negative stereotype that you're talking about, and I do know that negative stereotype is at times warranted. Like all stereotypes, it's not always warranted, and it's not fair to make that judgment of a person just based on those facts. But I enjoy trying to create a new narrative, right? I enjoy confusing them, right? And if they're used to the American expecting things in like U.S. culture and in English, I like to confuse them a little bit and hopefully show that there is this other side to Americans and American culture that is very positive. It's just, sometimes you got to look past some of the negative and give folks a chance. So I enjoy it, and I love confusing them and speaking Spanish or whatever, and caring, and them feeling that and knowing, because that's really a human thing. That's not an American thing, or that doesn't belong to any nation. That belongs to us as people.
Right. Can I just touch back on that? I totally agree with you. Once I've opened those doors, then I'm like, I'm an American. I was born in California. I was raised in California. That's all my life. Then they're fascinated. They're like, really? But you don't seem like, we're not all like that.
Right.
So, once I'm through the door, then I'm, then I say, yes, I'm an American. I'm in California. And then they're fascinated by, oh, do you see a lot of movie stars? And that's the first thing they say. It's like, have you seen, I don't know, George Clooney? I'm like, no, but if you go to Cuomo, you probably see him there a lot more than you would see him here. Yeah.
So one thing that I also love about your travel, Linda, is you immerse yourself. We've talked on the show before, like what's the difference between a tourist and what's the difference between a traveler? And you have this love of learning, and wherever you go, you enroll in some sort of class or you get involved somehow to really experience the destination or the place that you're at. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when I travel, I like. I, I'm not. I heard that you're a big planner, saying I try not to be so plan oriented. I do like to have a plan, um, but doesn't mean that I have to like wake up at 8 and I'm going to go see this museum. And I'm just a little more flexible that way. But there are things that like must see, and those must sees are more of um, like a checklist. And when I get to it, hopefully I get to it. But one thing that I really like to do and dig in and try to find is a cooking class. And I think I started doing that to help me immerse in their culture and understand their food a little more and understand them. And so I've really enjoyed that. I try to do at least one. And I remember I was in Italy, I think back in 2018, 2019, and because 2020 is just like throws me off. But we took a pasta class, and it was in this little Italian woman's home with her whole family in their kitchen, and they were teaching us how to make pasta, homemade pasta. It was fabulous. It wasn't just, oh, I'm taking this class to learn how to make pasta, but it was just engaging with. It was the grandmother, the mother, the father, and the two kids, young kids, and it was very nice. It was like being at home again. It's not my home, it's not my country, but I felt very much at home, and I really enjoyed that. That was really a wonderful experience. Yeah.
Well, I think it's mean of you to talk about all this great food, um, because I'm getting hungry here on this Saturday afternoon. But it reminds me, what would be some of the your favorite Peruvian food?
Peruvian food. I'm glad you specify that because people ask me, like, what's your favorite? Oh, it's so hard to choose. But my favorite, now don't tell my mother, 'cause she's Ecuadorian, but my favorite Peruvian food would have to be, gosh, there's so many. Have you had Peruvian food?
I've had some. I mean, not to where I would consider myself an expert. And the
Mm,
Peruvian food that I've had has been here in the States, whatnot in Miami and places like that. But
okay.
what I discovered was that um, it's really good.
It's really good. Um, I don't know if you know, but let me just give you a little background. Do you see that picture there with the dumplings?
Yeah.
I just have to interject here because that I had January 2020. I was hosting Chinese kids, and I had a group of 14 kids that I actually was in charge of. Guess where they were from? Wuhan. And it was so they came mid-January, and we were just on the cusp of learning about COVID, and there was just this big commotion going on amongst them. And I was like, what is going on? Why all of a sudden there's so much going on? And it was more about they couldn't find masks. They were sold out in China. So they were trying to buy masks here. We were sold out. By the time they were looking for masks, Amazon was out everywhere I took them. They were out of masks. By the time we had our shutdown, I think it was um, April or May, they sent me masks. And it was just such a
Mm.
turnaround of events back then. But sorry, I digressed a little bit. Going back to the Peruvian food, so a little bit of history about Peruvian food. I'm not sure if you know. It's a very big fusion of Japanese and Chinese and some Italian. So um, because there's a fusion, you get a lot of different flavors. There's soy sauce interjected in the food. Ceviche is probably one of my favorite fish ceviche. Now, shrimp ceviche is my favorite from Ecuador, but fish is definitely my favorite from Peru. Um, there's a dish called lomo saltado, which is a stir fry, and it has typically it's a filet mignon with onions and tomatoes and French fries, and then a side of rice. So in Latin America, there are a lot of, well, not Latin, all of Latin America, but Ecuador, Peru. I'm just going to speak of those two. We eat a lot of rice every day with our dishes. Um, and in Peru, a lot of dishes are introduced also with rice because in Peru, there's about 3,800 different types of potatoes in Peru. And so the potatoes actually, and quinoa came from Peru. Um, so a lot of dishes have potatoes in it with the side of rice. So those
Well,
way
and
rice.
I do want you to I want you to settle this age-old discussion about whether or not pisco has to be distilled in Peru, because I think the Chileans would argue they have their own.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yes, for sure. I have to say yes.
It
It's the
has to it has to be distilled
in
in
Peru.
Peru.
Yeah.
Okay, we have you on record.
100%. Yes.
It,
Absolutely.
it's a good thing I didn't this wedge wasn't driven between Peru and Ecuador. It was okay because it was Chile. Chile. You could go ahead and, leave them
Yeah.
out. All right. Well, we'll have somebody who is either from Chile or has, family in Chile, and we'll see if they
We're gonna
agree
be
with you.
fighting here.
Yeah.
Fighting here.
Look at you causing trouble again.
Hey, I
Yeah.
try.
Here's the question I have for you, Linda.
Yes,
It's a two-part question. One, can you teach Adam how to cook?
absolutely.
And two, can you also sew him some more shirts?
Ah,
I tell you what,
well,
ladies and gentlemen, Zan would like to ask that question again, only she would like to be the only one on the screen while she asks
Oh,
it.
you know that I hate it when I'm on the screen. That that
um,
that
Um,
was my way though, Linda. To also,
sew
I
me
also
some
want to talk about.
shirts.
Hello, flashing some skin there under
Yeah.
the beard
Well,
there.
just
Double
because
A. Yeah,
it's, I mean, I need to get some sun. I'll just put it that way.
yeah. Well, trying to distill those rumors if you have a neck or not, because most of the time we can't see it because of the beard. Yeah. Anyway, Linda, I also want to talk about your fashion side. And, I think you just started a new project that you mentioned to me that you're working on too. You want to talk a little bit about that?
So to answer your double question, yes and yes.
Okay.
I actually love teaching, which never would have said that before, but I worked for Williams Sonoma for a while, and that's how I started teaching. I was there as a chef and teaching classes, and I found out that I really liked it. So I actually teach on my own as well. Um, Love that. But going back to the fashion, because the shutdown in COVID, it really affected my work because I was a private chef and caterer. So I thought, what else can I do? There, I found this website called Lessons, and I signed up there to teach sewing. For months, I would get requests, and I never replied to them. And I thought, oh, I don't know if this is something I want to do. But I had been sewing with my grandmother since about the age of 8. Um, so that's where a lot of my passion comes in. It comes from both of my grandmothers. They were very handy, and I learned so much from them. Um, so I used to want to make my own clothes, and that's why I went into the fashion industry straight out of high school. I became a fashion designer, and I did that for several years. I moved to Miami, and I went and I worked as a fashion designer there, and came back, and I just got burnt out with the industry. Um, Ended up getting married, and I moved to Africa. But the fashion side of me has always been there, and now that I'm actually teaching others how to sew, because I actually started replying to these requests, it's 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 kind of got me my juices flowing in the fashion world back again. And then my daughter, I'm helping my daughter create her own line, and we're working on a couple projects back here. I just recreated this room into my craft room because I can't call it a sewing room because it's just I do a bunch of crafts. So I'm that's one of my projects that I'm working on with my daughter. Yeah. And yes, Adam, do you need some shirts? I mean,
I do. Apparently, you just sew shirts, like, according to Zan, you just sew them, right?
yeah.
Just needle and
Just like
thread, and you just sew a guy a shirt.
yeah.
Um, listen, this is a question that a serious question I've had since I was about 5. Why are green beans so terrible?
Because they didn't make them properly for you. They're not terrible.
Don't, I hope mom didn't see this.
Okay, so my mother, I don't like chicken, and that's because my mother doesn't like to cook. My father taught my Peruvian father taught my mother how to cook, and nowadays she just goes and puts a bunch of vegetables in some water in a pot and calls it a soup. It's like no flavor. It's just, that's how I grew up. Okay, not that bad. My mom's not that bad. Okay, hope she's not listening. But
We that's something we can agree on. Moms are not allowed to see this episode.
no,
Um,
no, no,
but
no, no.
I did not. I didn't like green beans growing up, and I still don't like them.
But you like peas. I don't
I
understand
like
because
peas.
green beans are so much better than peas. Peas
Mm-mm.
are just weird. They don't have a purpose. Peas are just, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, but green beans. Mm-mm.
I kind of alluded to this a little bit. As a child, I was very finicky. All I wanted was red meat. That's it. And every Sunday, my mother would make liver, and that smell is just you can't hide that smell. And every Sunday, she would trick me and say, "Oh no, I made it differently." No, no, and I would have to sit at the table all day till I finished my plate. I sat, and that plate sat there with me. I I would not eat it. I still don't like liver, but our palates change time. So you can still learn to love green beans. I have hope for you.
I don't
I
want
didn't
to.
like onions before. I didn't like tomatoes. What did he say?
I don't want to.
Well, there you go. You know, there are many people who actually eat to survive. Not They don't really enjoy food. They just eat because they have to. And then there's people like myself who I travel for food. I don't think I've ever told you that, Zane. Huh? I actually travel. I went to Peru um, because I wanted to visit one of these restaurants, the 50th or top 25 in the world best. And I took my kids, and I'm like, we're going to Peru. We're going to go to eat at this restaurant. And yeah, and then I kind of base my travels around. Okay, this is what we're doing, and then whatever else happens, and yeah, everything else is icing. I didn't plan on taking cooking classes in Peru, but I did. With one of my daughters, we took some cooking classes. That was fun.
How do your kids feel about travel?
Oh, they love it. Um, I knew it was a gift that I received from my parents. They didn't know. So it was, a little caveat here is interesting is that once I was older and had kids, and I realized, oh my gosh, my parents used to send me to Ecuador because both my parents worked all summer because that was my babysitting, and they didn't know what they actually created. They created a travel monster, and they thought they were just sending me off. Oh, we're just gonna pack her and pretend like she's gonna have fun. But yeah, no, I had a lot of fun, and so I thought, what an amazing gift to give anyone. And if I were to have kids, I thought back then, I wanted to offer this to my kids. And thankfully, I had that opportunity. And not only to have them travel with me. My daughter's been travel. Both of them been traveling since they were months old. One of them 1 month old, the other one 3 months old, and I keep all their passports, and you could see the little progression. Um, and now they just itch to travel. My youngest daughter, her junior year, she spent a whole year in Belgium, and then she decided she wanted to get her master's in Amsterdam. So she studied in Amsterdam. That was during COVID, and she thought she was going to stay and live there. So did I. But then she calls me and says, "Mom, I've been isolated since January, and I need to come home." I'm like, "Of course, you know." So she comes home, and now she's living here. But I know she's itching to go back to Europe or somewhere. So it's in their bones. It's in their genes to travel. And like I said, their father's Lebanese too, and so he's also done a lot of traveling. And it's just that's who we are. That's our makeup.
Well, Linda, you're very talented. You're very creative. We've talked about a lot of different aspects of who you are, but every time we talk about these different topics, the
Hmm.
creative talent, so your creative nature comes out, and I think it's pretty neat. Of course, we've been looking at your uh, Instagram as through the conversation here, and even that the photography is very intentional. And
Thank you.
I don't know whether you're doing it or uh, I'm assuming you are, but maybe you have somebody that helps you with that. But the all the additional effects and the videos, that page comes to life, and
Oh,
it really
thank
is nice and just kind of nice to see it. You enjoy traveling and you enjoy these things, and be able to share it, share that heart and that passion with the world is pretty special. And it's been cool to get to chat with you some today.
thank you. I appreciate that. This is unusual. I'm a behind the camera type of person, and so yeah, I was a bit nervous, but it was fun. Um, my photography, yes, I'd say 99% of those pictures are mine. And the edits are definitely mine. That's one thing that I really like to. That's why it takes me so long to post, because I never think the pictures are good enough, and then I'm editing and okay, what do I post? What do I caption? And it just takes me forever. But um, I was on. I was during the shutdown. I was very engaged daily with Instagram, and then I had a burnout, and I you talked about that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I got off for a few months, and then one of my best friends passed away during that time, and that was difficult. So I stayed away even longer, and I'm just getting back. I think it's been 2 or 3 months now that I'm kind of slowly weaning myself back in. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I think
time.
we were talking about how when you have an Instagram account and you're posting it, making it meaningful and making it personal, you're
Mhm.
kind of giving up a little bit of yourself
Yeah,
every time that you put that out there for people to see and in a way judge, right? And you're taking that part of yourself out. And after a while it does become a little exhausting, right? You almost have to replenish
yeah,
yourself. And
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, and I had to re-energize my batteries.
yeah,
Um, I'm a bit of an empath, and I, there was a point where I was reading comments and how some people were really depressed during the shutdown and what. And I said, "Oh, I empathize with you." And just using those words or some other words that I used, such as that, it just brought me down, and I started getting depressed all day. And I thought, "What is wrong with me?" And I realized that I had read that comment and how I responded to her. And I thought I need to go. I shut down from social media, and I said I need to go watch um, some comedy or something, and that's what I did just to change my whole mindset. And then I thought I'm not doing that again. I can't. And but
yeah,
I have put myself out there, which, like I said, I used to be super private, and my accounts were private before, and I put myself out there starting late 2019 and all through 2020. But I always try to respond to everyone's comments or captions, and And I'm always trying to be positive. I never give out any bad juju because I never want it to come back. And that's how I live my life, not just on
Yeah.
social media. I'm just trying to be a positive person because that's what I want back in my life.
Well,
Isn't
Linda,
it?
I think that's important, and you're right. We have to filter with so much bad news and negativity in all these different directions. It is important or necessary sometimes to turn it off, and especially if you're sensitive to it, and so many of us are, and it affects us. Okay, last question. All right,
Okay.
what is it like, or do you recommend going to a museum with Zan?
Yes, I recommend it, and it's fun. I enjoyed going with her. That's why I'm going again. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's more coming. I have tickets to Bansky, to Monet. Who else is coming up? Someone else is coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll be going. She could be my museum buddy or
Yep.
any kind of buddy. You're
Yep.
welcome to join us.
I'll do that. I will do that.
It's not
I'll do it.
boring. I'll put it
As soon
that
as
way.
as soon as I get another shirt.
I'll bring the shirt for you.
Okay.
And I'll bring some pisco.
Oh yes. Okay, I'm gonna be there then. The
We'll be
Pisco,
there
you got me.
in the corner.
You got me convinced. Well, thanks again. It's great to know you.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Linda. I mean, the aspects that you talk about seeking out cultures that are just warm and inviting and engaging, I think you just envelop and shine through that as well. You know, I think that's an experience that you bring to everybody who has a chance to encounter you too, and through your photography and your Instagram account. So it was just a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. It's been call me back. I'll be back.
Okay.
Definitely. We'll do it.
You have
And
fun.
Yeah.
we look forward to following you, Linda, on Instagram at Thyme_and_travel. So again, now that we have the audio version of the podcast, I want to be sure people can follow
And
along.
spell time.
Thyme is spelled THYME. Thyme and travel, and
Yeah.
put underscore between the words there, and you'll find her, Linda, and she's very creative in all these different regards. You won't be sorry that you connected with her on Instagram.
And
you.
join us again next week. We're going to have another amazing guest. We're going to have Mama O. So if you are part of our Twitter travel tribe, we're excited to have her. And I'm also going to make Adam spell more words on that episode as well.
Happy to do it.
Yep.
I'm here for that.
Yes. So we look forward to seeing you next week right here on Wander to the Edge.